Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, because the world needs to know. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, because the world needs to know. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, because the world needs to know. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, because the world needs to know.
Greetings. Welcome to Say So, where we talk about it, whatever it is, because what you do not know can hurt you. So, let's get to the root. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Letitia R. Stuckey. Welcome to the official relaunch of Say So Radio and the official launch of our new YouTube channel, Say So Radio. This week on Say So, I am going to just go over some of the things that Say So is about, our vision and our mission. I'm also going to throughout this month of November only, I'm going to share a bit of my personal testimony and stories of survival so that I myself will drink from the cup first before I bring on special guests and allow them to share their personal testimony and stories of survival. So I just wanted to begin just to let you know a little about myself. And so you can feel sort of acquainted or sort of like, we have a connection and or an understanding. So once again, my name is Letitia R. Stuckey. The R stands for Renee. My middle name, I was actually named after my aunt Tangela, and her middle name is Renee as well. So I was born to Tawana Stuckey and Rory Blackwell. And I was actually the third of both of them. My dad had an older daughter, and they both shared a daughter, my older sister, Shakitha Stuckey, and myself. So 3 children between both of them. And personality-wise, I'm pretty much a combination of my mom. She's very talkative, very outgoing. If you know her, there is no other like her. She's got a very unique voice. She's a unique individual. And my dad is more laid back. He's humorous and has a sense of humor, as well as my mom. But they're almost polar opposites when it comes to personality. You have someone that's really quiet and laid back and observant, and then you have someone that's just the life of the party and talkative and just outgoing. So I consider myself a combination of the two. It depends on the situation. Typically in new situations like this, I observe, I'm laid back and reserved, just kind of checking the atmosphere to see who I'm around and what's going on. So anyway, as it pertains to Say So, the vision of Say So is basically to allow a safe place and space for individuals like myself, and I'm sure you, to share our personal testimony and stories of survival. I was pretty much raised in the church. My aunt Tangela adopted me at age 4, and I've been going to church since age 4. So, in the church, if you're from the church background, then there used to be, and in some churches there still is, testimony service where people could stand up and give God glory, honor, and praise for what he's done. People would share their struggles and just honestly share what was going on in their lives. They will share answered prayers and things that they're looking for or praying for their children or with their jobs or schooling. Just basically an individual telling you what's going on in their life and giving God glory and honor for keeping them and for protecting them and just whatever they saw fit to share. And if you've been in churchdom, you know that some people can be extremely long-winded. And it's like you're about ready to beat the drum because they're telling you their entire life story. And there are others that, may want to share and may need to share. And testimony service is typically not very long. So they used to say, pop up like popcorn, because if there's a lag or if there's quiet, if there's a holy hush, then they're going to move on with the service because they're like, well, maybe no one has anything to say. So personal testimony, I think, is really important. I think in most churches, there's not a lot of space for personal testimony. And I just really think it's important because you never know who your testimony will reach. You never know that by giving your testimony, you're actually giving someone else hope. You're actually giving them courage and strength and faith to continue to move on in their situation. And you may actually be telling their testimony for them. So you can relate to people on that level. So I think that's really needful and necessary. So once again, Say So is to provide a safe place and space for individuals to be open and honest and share their personal testimony, share about their thoughts, their struggles, the things that they are working towards, that they want and or need to overcome, the things that are maybe patterns in their family that they see or struggle with. Their spiritual life, their faith walk, their dreams, their visions, their passions, entrepreneurs, if their reasoning for beginning their journey or having their own business is rooted in a personal story that others can relate to, then that's also an avenue or a way that they may be one of my special guests. So I just really believe that it's important that we are able to voice our experiences. We are able to voice our concerns because life and death is in the power of the tongue. So it's really important that we speak, we speak forth and speak honestly about where we are, where we've been, and where we are going in life in general. So Say So is literally a biblical concept. And in the book of Psalm, the 107th Psalm, verse 2 says, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Those who have been redeemed from the hands of the enemy or the adversary. So Say So is basically about letting us who have been redeemed say so, share our testimony of how they used to say, the devil thought he had me, but I got away. So that's another one of the premises behind Say So. Also, Say So is a faith-based broadcast or program. I myself am a Christian, and I have Christian beliefs and values. I was raised in the church, and I am a kingdom-minded individual. So I would definitely like to have other kingdom-minded individuals on here to discuss and to communicate and to, open up the lines of communication to talk about things that we don't typically talk about as a people or in church. Like I said, a safe place and space for you to do that. A lot of the individuals that will be my special guests in the future, they will talk about, the real about childhood trauma, neglect, abandonment, abuse. They will talk about, possibly if they have experienced rape, if they have experienced abortion, dealing with betrayal, dealing with rejection, just really the hard-hitting things that a lot of us experience. But if we don't or choose not to seek professional help, like find a counselor or a mentor or someone to coach you through where you are right now to get you to where you need to be or where your goal is to be, then we just hold it inside. And I am a proponent of that. I've done that most of my life. And I personally learned how liberating and how freeing it is to be able to talk and say, yes, this happened to me. Yes, I experienced that. That was traumatic, that hurt me. It caused me to have these challenges, trust issues, communication issues, relationship issues. It caused me to withdraw or isolate myself or whatever the situation may be, and just be open and honest about our struggles, where we are, where we've been, and where we're going, because where you are is not where you're going to be or not where you're destined to be. Unless or until you decide that you're not going any further, then that you've reached your final destination. But if you choose to continue to keep going, then that's what you should do. And part of the healing process is speaking forth and saying what has happened to you, and not always the positive things, because it's not the positive things that we dwell on. It's not the positive things that causes our minds to drift or to shift. It's not the positive things that might cause us to have flashbacks, memories, nightmares. So it's those things that we try to hide, the things that we try to keep to ourselves, and the things that we try to keep secret and don't want to tell anyone about. So we end up struggling silently when the enemy is likely doing the same thing to your neighbor. But everyone's quiet because they think it's just them. They think they're weird. They think they're wrong, or, it's just their luck or whatever, or they've done something wrong. They've sinned and this is their punishment and they deserve it, or whatever the mindset may be. But 9 times out of 10 is nothing new under the sun, like the Bible says. So the enemy doesn't typically change up his tactics. If it worked for your mother, then 9 times out of 10, it may work for you. Now, it may not, but it just depends on the individual. So, for example, if you were born like me, I had my parents were young. My mom was a teenager, and but the Lord allowed me to destroy that generational curse. I was not a teenage mom. So a lot of the things that we battle and we struggle against, they have a root. They come from somewhere. They don't just drop out of the sky. So sometimes we end up fighting our parents' demons, or our grandparents, or our ancestors, or whatever. And you may not necessarily know where the origin of it is, but Holy Spirit can teach you, and he will tell you. He will lead you into all knowledge and all truth. So those are some of the things that Say So is about. When I say talk about it, whatever it is, that's literally what I mean. It's the uncomfortable conversations that we need to have that's going to draw us out of our comfort zone to where we need to be, so that we ourselves can receive healing and in turn reach back and get our brother or sister and bring them forward into healing if they so choose. So basically, a little more about me professionally. My background is in mental health and substance abuse. I have degrees in human services, which is basically I've heard it termed a generic version of social work. So basically, it's helping people. It's getting there in the midst of a crisis. It's getting there when it's like being in the trenches with people. So you may get dirty. You may not be able to wear the finest. You may not be able to look the finest, because it's a process for everyone. And wherever someone is, you need to meet them at the point of their need and be willing to do so. Be willing to adjust, be willing to accommodate, because we are all servants. So in order to serve, whatever you need to do, if you have to put yourself on the back burner or become or be made uncomfortable or adjust what you're used to, then if you are a true servant, then that's what you will do for the glory of God. And because your purpose to do that. We are all helpers of one another, and we are all ministering spirits. So at any given time, if there is something that the Lord wants to release to you so that it can come through you, then that you have the right way, or you have the will and the option to go forth. Let's see. So other things, basically my passion as it pertains to mental health and substance abuse, and children who have been abused, domestic violence, just basically those things that we kind of sweep under the rug as a community and as a people, but as a society as well. The things that we don't want to look at, we don't want to talk about. It's almost like the elephant in the room. Some people have the mindset that if you don't say it's there, if you don't admit that's an issue, then it doesn't exist, so you don't have to deal with it. And that is just not true. It's just a falsity. It's a lie. So I really hope, pray, and believe that a lot of healing will take place. I know for me, because I had such a traumatic childhood and a turbulent start, that I began to hold things inside. And one of the blessings is that God gave me the gift to be able to write. I started writing as early as age 9. And it wasn't until about 36 when I released my first book entitled Cast Down But Not Destroyed, Destiny's Child, that I really understood and was able to look back and say, like, I'm a writer. I used to journal. I used to write about things that made me upset. If I felt like somebody hurt my feelings or mistreated me, I would write about it because I was not the verbal person to snap back or to talk about it or to get into arguments. When given the option to fight or flight, I would take flight. I would avoid it. I would, say, well, the Lord will deal with it. I would pray about it and, leave it there. So that became a way of me, that became my coping, which is honestly, I found it to be unhealthy because there are conversations that have to be had, like the conversations that we're going to have on future episodes of Say So with my very special guests. So it's just important to, even the Bible says, cry loud and spare not. That means that there are some times when you have to lift your voice, you have to speak up and you have to speak out. So those are some of the things that are forthcoming with Say So. But to continue to tell you a little bit about myself. So I started initially with my parents. And at age 4, I was adopted by my aunt Tangela. And until age 20, when I got married and moved out and became a wife and started living individually or on my own, so to speak. And but what led me to my aunt Tan's care was that growing up, my mom, like I said, was a teenage mom. And for those of you who have teenagers or who remember being a teenager, to have 3 children at 16, 17 years old is not easy. To have 1 child at 16, 17 is not easy. So realistically, she was a typical teenager. She had other ideas. She had other things that she wanted to do that wasn't necessarily centered around motherhood and centered around raising children. So long story short, she would, for lack of a better word, she would leave us, like if she wanted to go somewhere or wanted to hang out or just needed some me time or free time, then she would leave us in our apartment that we had at the time. And eventually, I'm assuming, because of the progression of everything, that Department of Social Services got involved. There were court proceedings, and basically, that's considered neglect when you're leaving children unsupervised. Now, she would put us to sleep or try to put us to sleep. We would honestly play like we were asleep just so she would go or whatever. And then we would get up and start playing and probably tear up the house. So it's only by the grace of God that nothing really, that we didn't get in that nobody stuck anything in an electrical socket and got electrocuted while no adult was there, that we didn't drink or eat something that was poisonous, that the apartment didn't catch on fire, or some emergency that an adult would need to be there to summons help or to assist. And but by the grace of God, we made it out. So once the Department of Social Services became involved, you have a social worker, somebody that comes to check on you and the well-being of the children. There's court proceedings, and they pretty much give you a to-do list of things that you have to do or need to do, requirements that you have to meet in order to keep your children, or in order to decide if they're going to be a ward of the state, if they're going to live with a relative. And honestly, I learned all of this stuff in my background with mental health, having to actually go to court and advocate for clients, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why because at the time I was a child, so I didn't really understand all of the processes. So anyway, long story short, it came to the point where she understood that she couldn't just leave us unattended or unsupervised. So then she would leave us with people that honestly weren't the best people to leave us with. She thought that they were, I guess. Some people were, she thought they were her friends and they had children. And so she probably assumed that they had, the motherly instinct and that they would take good care. She would take good care of us in her absence, which did not pan out to be the situation. Under her care, we were treated differently. We were not allowed to go into the refrigerator while her children and her nephew was. We were just treated differently because she really honestly didn't want us there because we were not biologically her children. And my mom would leave us with her. and not just for a couple of hours, but hours turned into days, days turned into weeks. So my mom would come back to visit and check on us, but she wouldn't come back to get us. So I recall that happening to two specific placements. I will say that while I was at that placement with my brothers, like I was 4, my younger brother was 2, and my older brother was 6. So at that placement with the individual that she called her friend, they hung out and things of that nature. The nephew was staying there. He was a grown man, and while I was there, he was supposed to be caring for me because she had gone somewhere, probably to DSS, to get some assistance to help with feeding us and clothing us and financial assistance. She had taken my older brother and my younger brother. My younger brother, likely because, at 2 years old, there's a lot that goes into that. He needs to be changed and fed, and he really needs to be watched really carefully. My older brother, probably to help with my younger brother, or because it was less to do because he was a little more independent, being 4 years older than my younger brother. So I was left there, as far as I know, with the gentleman who was 18 or 19 years old. He was a high school senior, and her 2 teenage sons. So long story short, I was sexually abused and molested by the older one, who was an adult male, a grown man, while the other 2 looked through the window. So that was a trauma at a very early age. At this time, I was 3 or 4. I don't really know if I was 3 or 4, because I know for sure that I went to move with my aunt at age 4, but I'm not sure what month it was, or if I was 3, or if I was officially age 4. So that's a traumatic memory that I have, and that at 15, I actually suppressed it until I was 15 years old in high school, which is a very turbulent time anyway. You're trying to find yourself. You're trying to see if you want to be popular, if you want a boyfriend, if you want to go out, if you want to drive, if you want to work. There's just a lot of unstableness in those times anyway. And lo and behold, I started having flashbacks of that molestation. Literally visible, very vivid flashbacks. I can tell you how the room was. I can tell you how the beds were set up. I can tell you the way the house was laid out. I can tell you what the room looked like that I was in, the bathroom, just everything. Extremely vivid. So when it came rushing back, it was really like a tsunami. It was like drowning. It was like all encompassing. So during that time, I began having flashbacks. That was just one of the traumatic experiences that I recall having, the really early childhood memories that I recall having. At another placement, she had left us with some individuals, and one of the ladies was a teacher. And another issue I'm assuming that she was having was getting my oldest brother up and out to school every day on time, presentable, ensuring that he has all that he needs, his book bag, his supplies, utensils, lunch money, all of those motherly type things. And because the lady was a teacher, she felt that she would be responsible and be able to do that for him. Well, not only did so the arrangement was for her to get him to and from school and, care for him and us. So not just him, because we were not in school, but all 3 of us went with this lady who was a teacher. And there was another lady that she was living with at the time. And I'm not sure if there were a couple. Looking back, quite possibly. I don't know. And I won't speculate. But they were together, and they pretty much tried to take us in and everything. Long story short. And that placement, I was physically abused, beat with objects, just like corporal punishment, just almost like trying to control us or make us obey. And you're not even biologically attached to us. You're not family members. You're not loved ones. They were pretty much strangers. So long story short, that's another trauma. This is why I say, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Because statistically speaking, I am not the first, and God forbid, not the last woman of color or young woman to be sexually molested and or taken advantage of during childhood. I am not statistically speaking, the only one who has experienced physical abuse at an early age or during childhood, which we call child abuse. So it's important that we speak up and speak out, because if I'm sitting here in front of this camera speaking to you, it did not kill me. So what does not kill you only makes you stronger. Even and especially, I will say, when it doesn't feel like it makes you stronger. So that's just a little bit of my testimony, the very beginnings. So in the coming weeks, we'll go further and dig a little deeper into some of the other experiences that I have had. If you have questions, concerns, or comments, you can leave them down below. You can email me directly at saysoradio, the number 2 at gmail.com. And so that's, as you can see, my story and my passion comes out and comes forth. I have a passion for helping hurting people, because I personally know what it feels like to need help, and I know what it feels like to hurt. So that will pretty much conclude our conversation for today. But once again, this is our relaunch of Say So, which originally came forth on the Diamond HD radio station at in October of 2018. And since then, we were there for approximately 5 to 6 months, and then the entire radio station was shut down, or that was no longer an option. So we're back at it again. There are more stories to be told. There is more glory for God to get out of our stories,